So, as Daniel mentioned, I'm Jennifer Davis. I am an engineering manager at Google, and I am the co author of Effective DevOps with Ren Daniels. And Modern System Administration is coming out later this year. Today, I want to talk about heroism in the time of COVID-19. So, what is a hero? What do you think a hero is? Please do share in the chat. I can't see your chat right now, but I will definitely look at it later. I love to hear what other people think about this. This is such a great forum for us to be able to have a little bit more interaction with each other, different than what we have in real life conversations. The reason that I care about this topic is a few years ago, well, many years ago now, I was working at a company, and it was kind of like I was doing this startup within a big company. So I had all the resources, at least all the resources I thought I needed, and really smart people. And we built this particular product that was amazing. And as it became popular and had more use, I got the opportunity to hire people and train them. Except I couldn't ever get all of the pieces successfully trained. I would talk through the challenges, the problems. I wrote a book about it internally. I documented checklists. I created tools. I created automation. And every year during that performance cycle, I would get that dreaded improve your communication due to some failure of the system that had occurred. So I got a new boss. There was another reorg, and this boss came in. And one of the first things he said to me after a few months passed was, "You need to take a vacation." And I was like, "No, no, no, no. I cannot take a vacation right now. Everything is too sensitive. Something is wrong." And like, I literally am trying to convey this sort of urgency that I was feeling. And he was like, "No, it's going to be okay." He was so calm. "It's going to be okay." I was like, "No, no, no, it's not." And he's like, "Yes. And you're taking a vacation or I'm firing you." And when he said those words to me, they were like, it was like a wire into my brain. It was probably the only thing he could have said to me to convince me that I needed to take a vacation. So I took that vacation, and I came back and I felt so much better until I saw my email. And there had been the first Sub-Zero in the history of the company. Lots of money had been lost. And this well engineered system, based on all of the pieces that we had, redundancies, none of it mattered because I had failed to see that I was the single point of failure. My whole thought of what the job was and how I was supposed to do that job was completely wrong. I had been a hero, and I really needed to make it so that there was zero impact so that I could actually take time off. And so when I think about heroes, one of the first things I think about is the hero's journey. And we talk about Joseph Campbell is the person who described the hero's journey. The hero is someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than oneself. And anyone can become a hero on purpose or even accidentally. It's when they survive this crush, the ordinary person is transformed into this hero and is rewarded with knowledge and insight. And I get it. There's some like base sense inside of us that we need heroes to provide us the symbolism to lift us, especially to counter the strife that we feel every day due to whatever kind of traumatic events occur in our lives. But how do we use hero in our industry? It's about going that extra mile. It's about hacking up some solution, taking the shortcuts. spending long weekends and nights. Maybe it's about handling all the toil. And then we talk about people being the hero. It's such common parlance in the way that we talk about our work. Even there's so many from zero to hero comments and training, and you too can be a hero. And yet, all of these activities, what are the results? If we were to measure what the impact was to the systems, ourselves, what would we see? We would see impact to the relationships we have with our family, with our friends, impact to our sleep. Sleep deprivation has been shown to have the same impact to your body as a brain injury. It impacts our job satisfaction, whether we can enjoy the work that we're doing. And it impacts our self-confidence as we have decreased productivity and creativity, being able to think through different problems and how they work. Sometime after that job I mentioned about discovering this concept of, I don't want to be the hero, I was working at another company, or working for a different job. And I was relaxing on my Sunday. And I was having a lie-in, and all of a sudden I'm getting paged out. And I answer the phone. I'm a little grumpy because there is nothing in my current job that requires a Sunday page. Like, there's literally nothing. And this person answers, and they're immediately just so stressed out. Hi, is this Jennifer? And I was like, immediately, just this stone dropped. Like, oh no. Can you help me? I'm having this problem. And I felt like, you're handing me all your stress. And I was just relaxing. I was enjoying my Sunday morning coffee. And he kept going on. And I was like, I finally had to stop him. And I was like, chill. There's nothing that you could be talking about right now that would require you to be this stressed out on a Sunday. All of the work we do is batch. If there's a problem, neither of us have control over it. It will wait till Monday. No, I was told I have to da 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 da. And I reassured him, no, it's okay. And it was like a light dawned. He said, you mean I can eat lunch? And in that moment, I shifted from like annoyed senior engineer who's been paged out to, oh, mentor to new person who is new to this industry, fresh college student, and this is his first job. And he has been told he needs to walk around with his laptop and be able to immediately respond to pages. And that's why he's so stressed out. I get to my job on the following Monday, and the guy had even called me at work. He had literally called me at work, and the only way he could have done that was if he had been sitting in his office. And so I felt terrible. And so how we shape the industry and the work that we do, it's contagious. This idea that this is the way we work, I want to diffuse this. We need to change this. It's not sustainable. In 2007, Erin Callan became the first woman CFO of the Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was the fourth largest investment bank in the US in 2000, with over 25,000 employees at that time. In 2008, they filed for bankruptcy, and Erin attempted suicide. And this came from being in this culture of doing what you're told to do. She expressed that she didn't even know how to value herself anymore because what she did was who she was. All of these are symptoms of something that we call burnout. Christina Maslach and Michael Leader, the director of the Center for Organization Research and Development, have come up with these different buckets of what causes burnout, because there's not just one case of this happens and this causes burnout. And everything is individual. The first time I started talking about burnout, I couldn't say the words, I have experienced burnout. I was only able to say, I was afraid of experiencing burnout. I have experienced burnout multiple times in multiple ways from these different causes. And every time it's a new experience. It's always a surprise to me. And so the challenge is how to not get into these states. So these different states are the first one, which we often think is the main cause of burnout, but that's not really the case, of working too much, just so much work all the time. There's also lack of control, like not being able to say how your work happens, that you feel like you're not rewarded enough, or that there's problems in your environment, that there's lack of fairness in pay or time off, or conflict between your personal values and requirements of the job. So if we can't talk about burnout because it's uncomfortable for us to say those words, it might be helpful to think instead of the exhaustion funnel. And this comes from Marie Asperg, who talked about this as sort of this funnel. At every level, as we progress down this funnel, we get more stressed. We try to eliminate the things that we think are optional, but they're actually necessary for us to feel good about ourselves. Things like free time, focusing on our health, our social life, family time. It leads us to exhaustion. And because of the shape of the funnel, and because we've eliminated the things that help us feel good, it's really hard to go and progress back up. And the thing that I think we always get caught up by is this idea that 40 hours is the minimum that we should work. There's been research over and over again over the last few centuries about work. And Ford actually spent 12 years of experimentation. Yes, Henry Ford, who cars, right? He wanted to determine maximum productivity. And he found 40 hours was the max. What happens when you have more time is that at the beginning, you have more productivity, but after about the third week, you start seeing a sharp decline. We tell ourselves, look, we got so much done in the beginning. And so we keep pushing ourselves and we continue to lose more and more productivity. If we think about this, if Ford maximum hours is saying 40 hours, it's literally capitalism that's giving us 40 hours a week. And it's not that I'm saying don't ever crunch. There's actually data here based on the productivity. If you have a time-bound consideration where you really need to focus on something and it needs to happen by this date, it's okay as long as the team and the individuals on the team are able to recover, and that everyone, the manager on upwards, accepts that the team is going to take time to recover before there is a return to that baseline. So it's a strategy to adopt, but not something to do all the time. And it's also recognizing that no one is going to be productive all the time. And if none of that can convince you that like all the research and like, yes, but I'm special and I can work more time and it's all okay. Well, if you think about it, if you were paid a salary of $150,000 and you continue to work more than 40 hours a week, you're devaluing every hour that you work. So your time is less valuable to you. You're basically telling your company it's less valuable. You're also working less effectively than you could, less creativity than you imagine. So value your time. I think that you've probably, at least some of you have been convinced that we don't need to buy into this norm of lots of hours of work equals effective work, and that we need to be heroes as defined by our industry. So, what can we do? It's going to require effort. Even when I first started talking about burnout, it's been years now, and we are still in this state where we think and focus on productivity and velocity and all of these things that drive burnout in the system. So it's going to take effort for us to work on these tightly held beliefs around work and talking about well being in general. If we think about the 5 conditions of happy work, it's about having the freedom to do your work the way you want to do your work and what you're working on, having challenge within your work, learning from your peers, having a positive environment where you can grow, and making personally meaningful contributions. So the first step is about empathy for yourself. That might seem strange. Like, how do I, of course, I have empathy for myself, but maybe you don't. Multiple studies show that 35 hours is actually the closer max number to aim for to get effective productivity. And in the last year, we have been facing some huge challenges that were unforeseen. That's lowered that capacity. So if we think about it, there is no such thing as an absolute number. The reality is, this is not the only issue that we're ever going to face in our lives. There's layoffs, there's changes in the environment and what job availability there is. There's never a single number. So instead of viewing your effectiveness as some kind of continuous stream, consider it more of an ebb and flow. And grant yourself that grace that every week isn't going to be you at your best, but it's not you at your worst either. As long as you invest in yourself and how you nurture yourself to not get into the exhaustion funnel. Why are you working? Now, I don't mean because I make money and I have to pay for food to make money, but like, why are you working? What's your purpose? What are your beliefs? Why are you working at the job that you're working at? And to be clear, there are no wrong answers here. Nothing that anyone says is a wrong answer. The goal isn't to find the right answer. The goal is to understand yourself and to be able to separate out who you are from the job that you do. When you think about how you replenish your energy, what steps do you take? This needs to be a regular daily habit and not just for the weekends. It's easy to get caught up in the rush aspect of any job and forget to refuel. Working from home, for me, for example, it gives me the opportunity to take regular breaks. And so I go outside and I go look at the trees. And that is my breath of fresh air, but also a way to mentally reset myself. So think about those things that you do to fuel yourself. And when we think about education as being part of that, being happy as an individual in work, learn something new. Sometimes it's easy to get caught in the trap of, I've been in the industry for this many years, I know what I need to know. Take the opportunity to be a beginner at something and just learn it. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert. It's actually kind of fun to be a beginner a lot of the time. It's one of the reasons I joined DevRel, because I get the opportunity to be a beginner and learn something new that I didn't know before and have fun with it. When we're thinking about all these systems that we need to monitor, we need to also think about ourselves as being part of that system. We need to recognize the modes of performance that we have. How do you know when you aren't at your best? Track those qualities and make sure that you don't see emerging patterns. In the moment, it can be hard to be reflective and see downward trends. You may find yourself getting stuck And then as you meet new people, they start identifying you in that negative space, and you start identifying yourself in that way. It's helpful to lean into your network and ask for the support from people that know you and let them know, hey, let me know, like alert me when you start seeing these conditions. And I don't want to minimize or trivialize this. If you get to the point that you're experiencing burnout, there is no one path to recovery. There is no, here is how you get over this. For me, what I have experienced with burnout and the multiple times that I've experienced it, taking time off, taking a break from work, changing my job, remembering to do the things that nurture me, to fuel me, have all helped. But it's a pattern, and everything is different. One example in my experience was when I wasn't recognizing burnout. I took the time off from the job. I even changed the job, and my health kept progressively getting worse. I started having spontaneous bloody noses in meetings. And it was at that point, that's when I realized this is not healthy. I'm not in a good place. And that's when I changed the company that I was working at. At another job, and this happened in the past year, I enjoyed my job. I loved traveling. And then COVID hit. I learned I have ADHD because my coping mechanisms were no longer working and I had to figure out what was going on. Yet I was still tired a lot and I was anxious. And I thought, oh, this is COVID. This is a result of this. And as I watched what was happening in the world around me, it continued to build and I just felt depressed. And I got stuck. I interviewed, and it felt like it was the worst time ever to interview. In some ways, it was the best because I didn't get hung up on the stress of the interview because there was already so much stress going on in my environment. And I got the job. And I changed my job. And all of a sudden, I wasn't burnt out anymore. I was active and engaged. And I realized that I had fallen into that trap again of when you're not challenged in your work, you can get burnt out. And it's hard to talk about burnout. So I feel like sharing this vulnerability with you is very difficult because we're never experts at this, even knowing ourselves. So it's okay. Your path to recovery will take time and it will take effort, and you will get there. You'll have to try different things. And this is why it's really important for us to also have empathy for others. We don't know what is happening for any individual. We can't know, and it's okay. We grant other people empathy and recognize that the systems that we're in are the things that are creating the impacts that lead to some of the behaviors that we might not like about other people. But the reality is everyone's trying to do their best. We have to trust people that they're trying to be their best. But there are strategies we can take to improve the systems that we're working in. By eliminating some of the monitoring noise, for example, we can eliminate some of the toil in the environment. Instead of constantly getting paged and getting to that state of high alert, if we reduce that, we can reduce the impact to people in the system. If we eliminate flaky tests, we make them so that they're deterministic and there's not delays in the builds. Again, we're eliminating problems for the people. If we change how we do our infrastructure, eliminate manual configurations so that we get differences in the way systems are made, differences in the way things are provisioned, all of these manual steps are you being a single point of failure in your system. It's okay for us to automate things. It's okay for us to think about how these systems should work, as long as we consider what the impact is to the humans. That's what matters. It's not that we're eliminating jobs, we're eliminating the type of work we do within our job. It doesn't have to be this way. And if you can't change your job, you should change your job. It is an effective way to give yourself a little bit of boost to what you need in your environment. Together, we can build and change how the industry works and create more sustainable environments. We can build products with empathy for ourselves and for each other and change the world. Thank you so much.
Jennifer, that was fantastic. I start to finish from the heart. The chat in on the main stage is just people saying like, "Thank you. This was exactly what I needed to hear," and really, really appreciate it. As with every talk we've had so far, I don't even know where to start. Right? Information dense, and in also in this case, emotionally dense, and maybe that's where we'll start. Right? Um, you talked about the importance of empathy. You talked about the importance of uh, assuming good intent is so loaded now, but assuming that people want to do good work, right? And that you can't know other people. Is that something that you can learn? Is that something that you can get better at?
It's something you can practice. It takes time, but everyone can learn empathy. Uh, it's a terrible thing, but to say it. But even serial killers are effective, even though they don't feel empathy. They can show empathy. So don't be serial killers. That's the key message here. No, but what I feel is that the more, like with any skill, the more we practice it, the more we can get better at it and improve it.
Excellent. And just so again, so you know, the chat is just full of people saying thank you so much. Uh, I mean, there's not so many questions. It's just people saying this was amazing. So clearly you've hit a nerve, which I think is important. Um, so it's up to me then to come up with some questions. And I said this is information dense. Um, One of the things that comes up, and this has come up time and time again, is if you can't change your job, then change your job, right? This is advice that I think gets dispensed at every DevOps days I've ever been to by somebody, right? But the answer always comes back. Sometimes it's not that easy, right? You could be in a
Oh, it is
situation for one of any
never
number of
easy.
reasons, right?
It is,
Uh,
you're 100% right. It is never ever easy. And in fact, in some cases, sorry, I'm so passionate about this. In some cases, it is almost impossible. And this is, and you're right. We should take a look at this because in some instances, individuals are supporting their family, and there's not opportunities. Um, when I was 20, I moved from Alabama to California with no money, but a credit card. Um, I had $1,000, which is not a lot of money. Um, and that is not something that is afforded to everyone. And the reason I moved is because I couldn't find computery jobs in Alabama. And so I am very aware the challenge of changing your job. That said, more and more, we are finding the opportunities to work remote. Um, there's many of us that have experienced challenging situations, and we're working to change the industry to encourage um, equity and equality in pay, regardless of location, because just where you live doesn't impact the value of the work that you're doing. I think this is an important concept that we need to embrace because the value that we're building, it doesn't matter where you live. People are getting that value. So get paid what you're worth. So, how do you change your job? First, it almost is about letting yourself go. Uh, and what I mean is not keep doing the same thing you're doing at your job of long hours. And interrupt me if you want, Daniel. I'm sorry. Uh,
Go off, hon.
but thanks. But you have to make part of your job self care, and that's thinking through. Because if you don't have the energy, one, you're not going to be able to identify other jobs that are healthy. Two, you're not going to be able to identify like even past interviews because you bring that sort of tortured energy into the interview. So one of the things we talk a lot about is the FU money, is like setting aside FU money so you can take uh, a fun employment. What is it? Fun employment. I can't remember what
Fun
people
employment.
hashtag.
Yeah.
Yeah, unemployment, fun employment, right? But it's not really fun. It's just like for some reason we have this idea that we should uh, work until we're burned out, then take a break from work. And instead, it's kind of like we need to conserve and save our energy so that we can actually find something new because no job is permanent. Like you, no job. Every time someone leaves or joins a company, the job is changed. That's just the reality of it. So we have to be comfortable with the chaos of change. So save some energy for yourself because otherwise you have to build it back in order to leave a job. Work with other people. There's so many of us in the communities that are open to help you with your resume, to talk to you about interview questions, um, build connections. You're all in this event watching um, me talk, watching other people talk. The most important value of this event is not us talking. We're priming discussions, which is like critical parts of our job. But the most important part of this event is the opportunities for you all to connect with each other and build up these networks where you can talk to each other, talk about pay, talk about conditions of work, talk about the challenges. Um, that I think is part of the critical piece of like finding your next job. Um,
100%, and also an excellent plug for open spaces. Get people talking, make those connections, and if you want to talk about pay, if you want to talk about conditions at work, and you want to sort of move these conversations forward, do feel free to suggest those for open spaces afterwards. One question that's been upvoted a zillion times, and so I do want to get to it here, if you'll permit me, Jen. You've mentioned that you've had multiple burnouts, but not always. It wasn't always easy to recognize. Was it because there are multiple different signs? Was it because you didn't know what to look for? What could be some early signs? What are some ways people could hopefully identify impending burnout before it becomes critical?
For every person is different, so that's a critical thing, and that's partly is getting yourself to understand what your who you are and your identity. So in my first example of burnout, Daniel, you're old enough to remember Bastard Operator from Hell, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
BOFH. I read those and I didn't find like some of them were funny, but some of them were cruel. And I didn't like the sort of feeling. But then I realized after years, and like after I'd taken this break, like the vacation started leading to this ever escalating, like this ball of realization, like just continually going to. It wasn't that I was acting in different way. Like it was such a slow slide progression. Like on like I look back and I'm like, it's obvious. But in the moment, the changes were so subtle. But what I realized that really like was a huge signal was I had started acting in ways that were toxic. Um, Not being as helpful when people ask questions, um, snapping, like just these little things. And it took me realizing like I have somehow not embraced, but I have become what I do not to want to be. And so this is like going back to identity piece, like who I am. I want to be someone who's caring, who's kind, who's authentic, who's helpful. Um, and so it really shook me when I realized that that was not the person I was presenting to the world.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. And this is not only a vast topic, an important topic, and one that I think we could honestly spend a ton more time on and should probably spend a ton more time on. Just not right here, not today, because we have to keep it moving at the conference. But thank you so much, Jen, for again taking the time out to share from your experiences, from your knowledge, and from from the heart. It's appreciated certainly by me, by everyone here at the conference. Thank you again so much for taking the time out with us.
Thank you. See you on Twitter.